So in this screencast, we're just going to have a look at, in Scratch, how do we create a project which has two sprites, a backdrop. The two sprites are moving independently of each other, and then we're going to have a variable for lives. So we've done a lot of this functionality in the previous screencast that I did, but in this one we're just going to recap on the basics of choosing a sprite, getting them to move, and then we're also going to add in the variable. So I'm going to get rid of the cat, so I'm just going to X that because I don't want the cat in this one. Remember, I'm going to go to choose a sprite here. So if I click choose a sprite, and I'm going to go for animals again, and this time I think I might go for a butterfly, and I'm going to choose another sprite, and I'm going to go for animals again, and I'm just going to go for the beetle. I'm going to go for backdrops, choose a backdrop, and I'm just going to go for blue sky for this one. So I'm keeping it quite straightforward. So I'm just going to move them around like that. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to move the butterfly randomly. So it's slightly different movement from what we did before. So I'm going to go when green flag clicked, and I'm going to go forever. And this time I'm just going to motion, so I'm going to move 10 steps. So he's just going to buzz over and back really. And I'm just going to go for, I think it's in operators, pick random 1 to 10. So he's going to move a different number of steps each time. So now if I go, now it doesn't look like anything is changing, he's just running into the wall. Remember, to get him to bounce back, I just go back into motion and I go if on edge bounce. Now he's going upside down, so I don't really want that. So I need to set my rotation style, like that. And that keeps him going the right way up. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to get him to move. So I'm just going to get him to turn to make it look more like what a butterfly would do. So after moving, he's just going to move around like that. He's just going to turn. But now he's kind of going around in a little bit of a circle. So again, if I go to operators and pick random, so he's moving around slightly more, and then I'm going to go to motion again, and I'm going to get him to turn back, and I'm going to go pick random again. So now when green flag clicked, so he seems to be moving around kind of randomly on the screen, and that's the kind of movement. Now it's a little bit kludgy, but that's the kind of random movement I'm looking for. Okay, so that's just for the butterfly, and then I'm just going to have the beetle. I'm going to move the beetle down here, and I'm going to get him to move along the line that we have here. Okay, so I'm just going to stop that for a minute. Now you can tweak that so that you maybe move, you pick random more degrees, maybe you wait slightly in between, and you can do all of that. I'm just going to move to the beetle now. And here, I'm just going to get the beetle to move over and back along this line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move him down to the line here, like that. And you'll see the X position and the Y position, and that's here on the go to. Now what I'm going to do is I might just make him a little bit smaller. Now I can do that in a few places. I can change the size here, so I could make that maybe 80%. So if I click that, if I go 80, you'll see he gets a little bit smaller, and then he'll just move over and back. Or you can go into looks and you can change your size there. So you can change the size by something, or you can set the size to something. So I'm just going to make the beetle a little bit smaller. So if I just click on 60%, he just looks a little bit more like you might expect a beetle to look like. So I'm going to get the beetle to move now. So I'm going to go events. I'm going to go when green flag clicked. I'm going to go to control for my forever. And then I'm going to go to motion and move 10 steps. And then the last thing I need to do, well, let's just test that first. So he runs into the wall and he doesn't come back. And remember, the way to get around that is just to do if on edge bounce, and then he'll just bounce back. So he's just running over and back. Now if I want to slow him down, I can do move 5 steps rather than move 10 steps, and you'll see he's going a little bit slower. So now the two of them are moving. So what we need to do now is we need to check to see when they are touching each other, what are we going to do? So when they're touching each other, we're going to change the color of the beetle, and we're also going to have a number of lives. So I'm going to do the change color first. So we're going to detect the collision detection, and then we're going to change the color. So if I go to events, we're going to have a when green flag clicked again, and another forever. And this time, remember, we're checking to see if they're touching each other. So I'm going to go to control again, sorry, and get the if statement. And then I'm going to go to sensing, and I'm saying if touching. Now instead of mouse pointer, I want to say if I'm touching butterfly 2, and then I can go to looks and I can change the color. So if I go down here, there's change color effect by. So every time they're touching, then the color effect is going to change. So let's just test that one. So there they are, he's changing color. He's changing color every time he touches. So maybe I might put in a little bit of a wait because he's touching a couple of times there. So I might just put in a little bit of a wait in control so that it doesn't change. So it changes. They're going to touch again. So next time they touch again. So he's just moving around. And there you can see that the change doesn't happen as much. So that's just a very simple thing that you can do. So he's just changing the color effect when they touch. Now the next thing we want to do is to put in a variable, because we're going to have a number of lives, so that when the number of lives is 0, then the whole game is going to stop. So how we're going to do that, we go to variables here and we create a variable. So I'm going to make a variable called lives. I'm going to click OK on that. And now I can set lives to a value. So what I'm going to do is, and you can see here, it shows the value of the variable. You can either show that, or if you don't want to, you can click on the little checkbox here beside lives, and that'll either show it or not. I'm going to leave it on so we can see what's happening. And what I'm going to do here is, I'm going to set lives to 5 at the start. So when green flag clicked, set lives to 5, and then every time they're touching, I'm going to change lives by -1. Okay, so now I'm going to test it again. So my lives is 5. They haven't touched yet. They've touched, and now the lives went down. They've touched again. Lives has gone down to 3, and the color has changed. They've touched again. Lives has gone down to 2. Just waiting for them to touch again, so the butterfly is kind of staying up this time. They've touched again, lives has gone down to 1. There's a little bit of a lag when the lives changes because we're waiting the 1 second. So you can see there that the variable is changing. Now what we might want to do is, we might want to say when lives is less than 0, or even when it's equal to 0, when you're out of lives, then you might want to stop the game. So how we would do that is we could put in another if statement, and we can go for operators, and we can say if lives is less than, so we can put something in here and we can change what's here. I'm going to go back to variables, and I can say if lives is less than 1, then I can say game over for 2 seconds. And then I have this option to stop all. I think it's in control down here. And it should stop what is happening. So let's try that now. So 1 life is gone. So our lives is now 4. Another life is gone, lives are 3. Touch again, another life is gone, lives are 2. Touch again, lives are 1. Touch again, it says game over, and then it stops everything. So that's just showing you basic collision detection, creating a variable, setting a variable to a value, and then reducing the variable by something when they're touching. Okay, I hope you found this useful.